This is Jeb Blunt, and it's Money Monday on the Sales Gravy Podcast.
Say make money, money, make money, money, money. Make money, money, make money, money, money. Money makes the world go round. I'm the talk around town. Remy gave me the sound. I need that Skrilla on the...
All right, it is Monday, the most important day of the week, and I am here to help you get fired up and focused, because when you start your week strong, you end your week strong. And here's the thing. I love my podcast listeners and the fans of my books. I love it so much when we get to meet in person and talk sales. And one of my favorite places to meet you is at the Outbound Conference. And look, if you've never been to Outbound, you really owe it to yourself to go. Outbound is the world's biggest, baddest sales and leadership training conference, and it is truly an experience like none other. It's a chance for us to spend time together and for you to network with many of the best minds in modern sales. And I really hope to see you there. So please don't wait, because we sell out every single year. You can get your ticket today at outboundconference.com. That's outboundconference.com. And for the leaders who are listening, Outbound is an incredible team building opportunity. Go to outboundconference.com. That's outboundconference.com to get your tickets today. You've heard people say that sales is a grind, and they're right. Sales requires relentless effort. You got to make the calls, run the process, deal with all the internal roadblocks. You got to handle piles of rejection, and you got to show up every single day with a smile on your face, ready to do it all over again. But the dirty little secret is that there are plenty of salespeople who push through the grind day after day and still don't seem to get ahead. They put in the effort and work, but they don't get anywhere. It's all grind, but little shine. So here's the truth that they don't always tell you. You can grind yourself into the ground and still fail if you don't have the right mindset and belief system underpinning that effort. And look, I am the person who shouts from the rooftops that you got to grind to shine. I say that in my book, Fanatical Prospecting. It is printed on coffee mugs. I love the mantra grind to shine because it's about doing the things that other people are unwilling to do. But raw grind isn't always enough. Sometimes you need to pair grinding it out with tenacity. And in sales, tenacity is a more sustainable trait than pure persistence, because tenacity combines persistent determination with process certainty and strategy. Grind is all about doing the daily repetitive rejection-dense work required for success in sales, but it can quickly lead to frustration and burnout when it isn't paired with enduring faith that the hard work is going to pay off. Tenacity, on the other hand, is grinding combined with the absolute certainty that what you expect to happen is eventually going to happen. And that's the difference between the rep who grinds hard for a quarter, feels like they're getting nowhere, and burns out because they're not seeing results, and the sales professional who consistently runs a sales playbook without immediate evidence that it's working, because they have faith that the process will eventually produce their desired outcomes. Now, one big problem with grinding without certainty is that when the results don't show up on your impatient timeline, you start changing everything. You make 100 calls this week using one approach, and then next week you try another script. And then the week after that, you switch your targeting. Then you read an article about social selling and you abandon cold calling altogether. You're working hard, but you're also second guessing every move. You change your messaging before you run it long enough to know if it works. You abandon techniques after a handful of attempts. You skip or change steps in your company's sales process after a couple of deals don't go your way. When you put in massive effort, but spread that effort across 10 different approaches, instead of trusting the proven process and trusting the playbook long enough to let it produce results, you end up in an exhausting, demoralizing quagmire of chaos, and eventually you give up. Now, when I say certainty, I'm not talking about positive thinking or affirmations or manifestation or any of that rah-rah motivational stuff. Certainty in sales means knowing, not hoping, but knowing that if you do the right things the right way for long enough, the outcomes are inevitable, that you get the sales gravy. That's what allows tenacious salespeople to keep grinding when others quit. They're not grinding on blind faith. They're grinding on proven evidence that the process works. For example, in Fanatical Prospecting, I explained the 30-day rule, which states that the prospecting that you do in any given 30-day period tends to pay off over the next 90 days. Now, the 30-day rule is always in play. It is proven. It is truth, but you will never see it work if your prospecting is sporadic rather than consistently executed every single day. Now, if you want to develop real tenacity, the kind that sustains you through tough markets, rough quarters, and slumps, you need to build certainty in 3 core areas. First, you need certainty in your value. You need conviction that what you are selling genuinely improves your customers' businesses and lives in a meaningful way. When you have that certainty, something shifts. You stop feeling like you're bothering people or being pushy, and you start feeling that you're helping them, that you belong there. And buyers can feel the difference. They sense and respond to your confidence, enthusiasm, and passion for helping them, which gives you even more certainty. Second, you need certainty in your process. You need confidence that your sales process and playbook actually works. Now, most sellers have been provided a proven, repeatable approach to building pipeline, qualifying opportunities, running discovery, handling objections, building consensus, negotiating, and closing business. And if you don't have a process, go read or listen to my books, Fanatical Prospecting, The LinkedIn Edge, Sales EQ, Objections, Virtual Selling, and Inked. Collectively, these books give you a powerful playbook for success. But regardless of whether you get your playbook from me or your company, believing that it will work for you is a choice and mindset that only you can step into. If you are constantly second-guessing the process every time things don't work out the way you want them to, you are doomed to frustration and failure. You will be a slave to flavor of the day thinking and winging it from call to call and situation to situation. But when you trust the process, you will be steady, consistent, and confident. And you'll relax because you'll know that you won't win every single time because no one does. But over time, because your process is proven, win probability will be in your favor. And that brings us to the third certainty, and that is probability. And this is the big one. You need certainty that the math works in your favor over time. The simple truth is that sales is a numbers game played with human emotions. Not every call will book a meeting. Not every meeting will turn into an opportunity, and not every opportunity will close. But if you control the inputs, activity level, message quality, process execution, the outputs become predictable and win probability bends in your favor. Now, ultra-high performers understand this at a bone-deep level. They know their numbers and conversion rates, and this gives them certainty that the statistics are working in their favor. On the other hand, the reps who are winging it are sky high when something goes well and in the dumps when things don't, without knowing what they did in either situation to affect the outcome. And it is on this emotional roller coaster where they eventually burn out and quit. But top performers never board this emotional roller coaster because they are anchored to math, not a mood. Now, maybe you're thinking, Jab, this all sounds great, but how do I build this certainty that you speak of? And that's a fair question. So here are 4 ways. First, track process metrics, not just outcomes. If you only measure outcomes like meetings set or deals closed or revenue generated, you are going to struggle with certainty during the lag time between the grind and the results. So instead, track the inputs like calls and conversion ratios, meetings, next step advances, or proposals delivered. When you measure the right activities, you can see progress and celebrate small wins when the results aren't there yet. This builds certainty that the process is working, which sustains your effort through the gap. Next, practice until you don't have to think. Competence begets certainty, and competence comes from practice and repetition. So role play your cold calls, rehearse your discovery questions, murder board your presentations, practice your sales story, messaging, and handling objections, and record yourself doing it and watch it back. When you've practiced something until it's pure muscle memory, you don't get nervous when it matters. You don't freeze up or get embarrassed when you fumble. You execute with relaxed confidence. And third, emotionally detach from any individual deal. The fastest way to lose certainty is to attach your identity to one opportunity. Tenacious sellers want to win every deal, but they don't need to win every deal to feel okay about themselves. They treat each opportunity like one at bat in a long season. Emotional detachment isn't indifference. It's a form of professionalism. It's caring about the outcome without being controlled by it. And finally, install a mental script for dealing with rejection. When you get rejected, and you will, it hurts, and your brain immediately tries to explain why. When you're in pain, it is super easy to default to stories that weaken your mindset and your belief system. You say things to yourself like, I'm not good at this, or this isn't working. Tenacious sellers consciously replace that story with self-talk that maintains certainty. They say things to themselves like, not now isn't never. This is just part of the math. Or my inputs are correct. I executed my process. This just wasn't the right time for this buyer. This is how top salespeople think, because they know that the greatest threat to tenacity isn't the rejection. It is the meaning that you assign to the rejection. I'm going to close with my final thoughts in just a moment, but first I want to give a big shout out to everyone who took a moment this past week to give the Sales Gravy Podcast a 5-star rating on their podcast app. You are awesome. Thank you so very much. And I really love this review from a listener called Mama Earth, who is a business development associate in the behavioral health and recovery industry. Mama Earth writes, I'm so impressed with all the content in this podcast, but also in the book Fanatical Prospecting. I listen to this podcast every day, old or new, because you can always get new information from the same podcast at different seasons of your life and career. Thank you, Jeb, for giving us a head start in our career and sharing your experiences that can help us through our roadblocks. Thank you, Mama Earth. I truly appreciate your kind words. Look, if you like this podcast, if you're getting value from it, please do me a favor and give it a 5-star review on your podcast app of choice. Your ratings and reviews are huge because they lift us up in the search algorithm, which allows us to help even more sales professionals just like you. Sales will always be a grind. The calls don't make themselves, the pipeline doesn't fill itself, and the deals don't close themselves. But grinding without certainty is just another form of suffering. It is unsustainable because eventually you're going to get frustrated, you're going to burn out, and you're going to give up. Now, certainty does not eliminate the hard work, but it does make the hard work sustainable. So if you're grinding right now and not seeing the results you want, don't just grind harder, build certainty. Get clear on the value you deliver. Trust your process, know your numbers, track the inputs, and practice your craft. Because tenacity isn't about being tougher than everyone else. It is about being certain enough to keep going when everyone else quits. And remember, when you're tired, when you're worn down, when you feel like you can't take any more rejection, when all you want to do is quit and go home, always stop and make one more call. Because that one more call is the ultimate demonstration of your trust in the process. This is Jeb Blunt, and I'll see you next time on the Sales Gravy Podcast.
Survival of the fittest, you can sink or swim. I've been broke, I ain't never going back again. I need some C-notes, some cheddar, and a stack of ends. I need a bowl of dough, I don't need no Facebook friends. I need a pack of them snaps, a handful of Fetty Wops, and rubber band on my greenbacks. Look, dawg, don't be playing with my paper. I need every red cent, that's why I brought my little scraper. Make money, money, make